Good deal. Thank you. There's a hell of a lot of people in the house.
Oh, in the hall?
No, in the house. A lot of folks. There's more than we'd fit in our other meeting room. We got PEA over here. They all decided, the PEA all decided to mask up for some reason.
Oh, no.
It's interesting. But yet they can. I'm done talking. We'll talk later.
If I don't, I'm gonna like this. I'm just so scared.
Oh. If you want. Yeah,
I'm really looking
I was just looking to see what's on the big screen. Okay.
that's correct.
A lot of Notre Dame sneaking.
Might go longer than 20.
Nobody in the SEC wants to play Notre Dame instead of Texas and Oklahoma.
Nobody wants to play regularly. Everybody wants to play them maybe for 3 games, you know, one of the 3 games out of the league or 2 games out of the league. But how do you build 12 games?
Yeah. Tennessee likes to do one big one a year. Like we're doing West Virginia in a couple of years. I don't even know what we got. I mean, we play Oklahoma. We do, you know, they do some pretty good schools. They try to go to West Coast.
Sure.
But then they play us some pocket football.
Sure. You know, that's how Western makes a living. I don't know if they're going to Michigan or...
This meeting of the Board of Education is now called to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to our board meeting tonight. Trustees Shelton Harris and Trustee Keith Kroll are not here this evening and send their regrets. And we'll start by approving our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as printed?
Yes, we have a few that I'd like to add. If you could please add in action item number 5 on the awarding of audit services as one additional item. And then if you could also add, after closed session, a post-closed session action item would be to approve a partial district calendar for the school year. Those are the only 2 items I have.
Okay, very good. Can someone please present a motion, please, to approve the agenda as amended?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Kurt. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, and we'll move forward with our revised agenda and go to the superintendent's report. Mark?
Thank you, Randy. The first 2 reports are the bond project update and the bond budget update and change order summary. And Ron Herron and Dan Rathburn, I believe, are here to address those 2 items. Ron and Dan? I think they'll be speaking from the podium in the back.
Good evening, board members. Just want to give you just a short, brief update on construction projects. The only one that I'll be talking about tonight primarily is that there are two. One is the central campus, Central Middle School. We're still doing some punch items and some commissioning in that building. And then the second item is the natatorium here on Northern's campus. We are scheduled to get occupancy on the 12th, and things are moving along quite well there. So we look forward to getting in that space this fall. And that's it for the construction side. We also have for you in your packet change order number 38, and Dan Rathburn is going to go over the change orders with you at this time.
Thank you, Ron. We'll start out with the BOE report for change order 38, basically showing that we are not moving any funds between projects at this point. And then moving into actual change orders, we only have change orders at Northern Natatorium, and we have 4. The first is to replace existing ADA middle school sidewalks to better align with the new natatorium sidewalks, and that was an add of $3,399. We also added a washout curb to the existing southeast sidewalks with a cost of $5,764. And then when we were doing the parking lot, we had to replace unsuitable soils found in the lot for a cost of $19,833. And the final one was an additional emergency circuit required by the manufacturer, startup engineer for the non-diesel generator with a cost of $945. And that's it for change orders. Oh, sorry. We have a total cost of change orders on the natatorium of $29,941. Any questions?
Thank you, Ron and Dan. Appreciate it. The board had a chance to tour the natatorium this evening and seeing how that's coming along. One of the things that I just wanted to mention is that we do have a open house scheduled for early September. I think we'll get the details out on that, but we do have a grand opening planned. I think that's in conjunction with the first swim meet.
Not the first.
It's not the first, okay. It's one of the first. Maybe that's what I meant.
It's on September 7th.
September 7th
Beginning
is
at
a
5
Tuesday.
p.m., there will be a tour of the natatorium, and the swim meet starts at 6. There will be some ceremonial things happening before the swim meet, so please come.
Thank you, Terry. Also, just a final reminder, if you haven't had a chance to vote, we do have an election. We're the only item on the ballot, so the district is asking voters to approve a $175 million bond project, which addresses our elementary school needs. It's really the third phase of phases that have been both completed at the high school level and nearing completion here at the middle school and pool level and our athletic facilities. We're able to keep the millage rate the same as it is this year in the 2021 year, so there will be no increase over this year in the millage rate. So hopefully people have that on their calendar to vote if they haven't already voted with absentee ballot, which is becoming quite popular in these times. The other thing I want to mention is you see the graphic on the screen. These are graphics that we'll be using throughout the course of the year and possibly beyond to celebrate our 100th year of existence as a district. And we want to thank the committee that's been working on both the logo and the activities that are being planned for the course of this year. It should be an exciting year, and we look forward to celebrating our 100th anniversary. That's all I have in the way of reports, Randy.
Thank you, Mark. We'll move to board education then, please.
Thank you. we have a presentation for you about what our plans are as we start up the school year. And before we get into the formal part of the presentation, I have a few things I want to cover as a way of an introduction into what you'll be hearing and perhaps a little more detail into some of what I'm saying. I think, first of all, it's important to understand that these remain in many ways uncertain times as it relates to both recommendations and requirements for schools related to COVID. We've seen contradictory recommendations and directions from various national and state agencies. And it's important that as a district, we both remain diligent and flexible in the event that circumstances such as increased levels of new COVID cases and/or increased levels of test positivity occur within Kalamazoo County. Vaccination is currently the leading public health prevention strategy to end the COVID-19 pandemic. Promoting vaccination can help us safely return to school in person and also allow for extracurricular activities. We recognize that requiring masks at this point in time is extremely challenging and has become a significant source of polarizing frustration and anger. It's apparent that many school districts around us are adopting a similar choice policy, which leaves the decision to parents and families. The Kalamazoo County Health and Community Service Department is supportive of our approach and asks that we recommend to our families and our staff to wear a mask if the student or the employee is unvaccinated. We're recommending that masks be worn indoors by all individuals 2 years and older who are not fully vaccinated. Masks should be worn consistently and correctly by unvaccinated individuals, especially indoors and in crowded settings when physical distancing cannot be maintained. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that schools maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance between students within classrooms, combined with indoor mask wearing by people who are not fully vaccinated to reduce risk of transmission. We will do our best to keep students 3 feet apart from one another, but cannot guarantee that that will be the case in all classrooms and other indoor spaces. We are encouraging mask wearing at those times when physical distancing is not possible. Screening, testing, ventilation, hand washing, and respiratory etiquette, staying home when sick and getting tested, contact tracing in combination with quarantine and isolation, and cleaning and disinfection are all important layers of prevention to help keep our students and staff safe. Students, teachers, and staff should stay home when they have signs of any infectious illness and be referred to their healthcare provider for testing and care. And finally, we're proud of the partnership that we have with our local public health department. It remains our intention to continue to meet with them on a regular basis to ensure that we get the most current information regarding COVID activity within Kalamazoo County. We will also continue to consult with them so that we're able to make informed decisions to assure the safest environment possible. So with that, I'd like to call on Dr. Pasco, Mr. Huber, and Ms. Jensenius to review our startup plans for this fall. Folks.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Beelang and trustees. Tonight we'll provide an overview of the 21-22 school year startup plan. We'll be sharing the following updates with you throughout the presentation. We'll look at the instructional options as we return. We'll look at our projected enrollment numbers as they stand right now in terms of most likely. Mike and Kelly will get into the current county health status. We'll look at our layered mitigation strategies that we'll have in place and give an update on how we're doing with our summer learning programs, K through 12, and then just talk about next steps and what needs to happen from now until August. So to begin, you guys have all seen this graphic. This fall, the majority of our students will be back to in-building learning 5 days a week, engaging in our PPS curriculum with healthy and safety layered mitigation strategies in place. Our teachers will continue to utilize instructional strategies to meet the wide range needs of our students. We know our students will have both academic and social emotional needs that we can meet. Our teachers, core curriculum, and the instructional practices that they have in place, they're key in providing students the support they need to meet the grade level expectations that are set forth. On top of that, we'll be utilizing and continue to utilize our MTSS model, which is our multi-tiered system of support. That's always been invaluable for us to meet the individual needs of all of our students. And it's an essential part of our work as we return this fall. Within that, we've used the term MTSS and have had some presentations in the past, but just to review some of the key components is the universal screeners that we do a few times a year alongside our pre-tests in our local assessments within our classrooms. While we've missed probably a lot of the MSTEP and SAT data on all of our students over the last couple springs, we believe that our internal assessments and our screeners give us a good handle on where our students at in terms of their academic work and their comprehension and mastery of our essential standards. The tiers that we talk about in our MTSS support model can always be amplified in response to the level of need that our students bring. Our school-wide approach to expectations of support are in there, and then of course, building that parent involvement and partnership within the school community is key. In addition to in-building learning, we'll also offer our K-12 virtual program. These programs are designed to support students who have found success in learning virtually, or they just feel like that's the best option for their family. So our virtual program will operate 5 days a week. It'll be synchronous learning with our PPS core curriculum taught by our PPS teachers. Each virtual program will expect students to follow the same rules, expectations as we would in in-person learning so that they can find success within that program. Our teachers will use the same high-quality curriculum, instructional strategies, and we'll implement the MTSS model in the virtual world as well. So looking at enrollment for both virtual and building, you can see up in the graphic, Mike's about to click here. We'll see the numbers have gone down slightly for those requesting the full virtual option since the scheduling process started back in March. So currently we're planning for 97 elementary students, 31 at the middle school, and 76 at the high school. So those are all numbers that have been reduced since we've asked families to make a decision back in March in terms of those electing the full virtual option. So just to give you a sense, at the elementary level, the virtual program, we have 6 teachers allotted to the program. That includes 1 special education teacher. And at the secondary level, both middle and high school, we have 7 FTE. So that's kind of chopped up throughout middle and high school that have been assigned to the full virtual program. Again, we will have some high school students that have blended schedules. They have some in-person as well as some virtual programming as we've presented in the past. So overall, our fall enrollment, we're seeing a potential increase of 133 students from the previous school year. So we should be close to about 8,774 students as our most likely scenario as we return. So I'm now going to hand it over to Mr. Huber and Mrs. Jensinius. They're going to talk a little bit about the current health status. Kelly, I know, will present on the later mitigation strategies, and we'll give an update on how we're doing with our summer learning programs.
Thank you if you're clicking up there. I appreciate that. Wanted to let you know the county and state have started reporting COVID numbers on a bi-weekly timeline instead of 2 or 3 times a week. So every other week, the information's being updated, which is a slower pace for us to be able to respond to those numbers. Michigan is now aligning what they call some school thresholds to CDC numbers. So on the chart that you're looking at right now, we have 2 columns, and I'm using both languages in there so that you can kind of understand how they're looking at it. All of these are available through that My Safe Start data, and we tend to have links on our website back to that information. That terminology change, Michigan has been using a low through E calculation, but the CDC just has low, moderate, substantial, and high as part of their vocabulary for case rates, as well as for percent positivity. So we're switching those, and the MDHHS and CDC also calculate new case data a little differently. So you'll notice under each of those boxes, the MDHHS looks at that as a 7-day average per million residents per day, and the CDC looks at it as weekly cases per 100,000. So there's actually a calculator on Michigan's site to do the translation. If you put in any number, it'll give you the other one. And so I've kind of taken a look at those numbers, and I provide them both to you along with the status and the color that lines up with how that organization presents their information. So locally, Our community transmission rate is around 21.8 new cases on our 7-day average. And our vaccination coverage is around 61.9% of residents with the first dose and 58.5% for residents who are completely vaccinated. Currently, our building outbreaks are 0, which would be kind of obvious since we're not in person. But we do have 2 buildings right now that are seeing a large number of students in them. That would be Lake Center and Portage Northern High School, where we're hosting our summer program. So we did want to say we're not seeing any issues related to those 2 buildings, although the spacing there and the number of students in the building at any time is much, much lower than would be during the school year. All of these indicators combined with what we're seeing, including the level ratings and where we rank with CDC, are pointing to us having a much lower risk of transmission. And that's what's led us to make our currently presented guideline protocols that we have for you. The mitigation strategies for the start of the year are dependent on this information. And throughout the past 15 months, we've been able to kind of adjust and modify as we need to based on the information at hand, and we'll continue to do that. We monitor that local transmission and adjust those guidelines as needed on that data, and Mr. Beelang and the rest of the superintendents in the county, along with KRISA, stay in touch either weekly or bi-weekly with the county health department staff relative to health status, and it's their partnership that's helped us develop our COVID strategy all along, as well as handle any particular cases that came up. Mrs. Jefanias?
Thank you, Mike. We're looking now at our layered mitigation strategies going into the fall. So our goal is to protect the health of students, teachers, and staff so in-person learning can resume as safely as possible this fall. The CDC is correct. Vaccination is the leading public health preventative strategy, and we know that not everyone is vaccinated, and therefore we are layering effective mitigation strategies. So I'd like to present a few of the changes and update to our strategies for this fall. The Kalamazoo County Health and Community Service Department asks that we recommend to our families and staff to wear a mask if the student or employee is unvaccinated. Therefore, we recommend, but not require, those who are not vaccinated to continue to mask. We will continue to try to maintain a 3-foot distancing between students within the classroom whenever possible. All our classrooms received air purifiers in the 2021 school year that will continue to be utilized. We'll continue, of course, with hand washing and good personal hygiene. We'll make sure we're encouraging that. And due to CDC research that indicates a low risk for COVID to spread via touching of surfaces, cleaning surfaces will occur at least once per day or as needed. We know sometimes we need a little bit more. Our traditional cleaning practices have many high-touch surfaces being cleaned more frequently. Students, teachers, and staff should stay home when they have signs of any infectious illness and be referred to their healthcare provider for testing and care. Transportation, including our buses and vans, continues to require masking due to CDC order for masking on all public transportation, regardless of a school district decision. And finally, the Kalamazoo County Health and Community Services Department is supportive of our overall approach, and we continue to consult with them on a regular basis. We will make any changes to our mitigation strategies in conjunction with them. With that, we are going to talk a little bit now about summer learning programs. And this summer, we had a wonderful opportunity to run our summer learning program at all 3 levels. I'm going to speak about elementary, and then Mr. Huber is going to speak about secondary. So our elementary summer learning opportunity, as I presented last time, was a small group tutoring session with as little as 1 student and up to 3 students per teacher. We offered 10 hours per student to build relationships and work on their academics. And that elementary program ensured that learning is fun and engaging for our students, while we were also able to establish that strong connection to essential skills for the upcoming year. We offered 3 different 2-week sessions, and that 3rd session just started today, and it will end on August 6th. So here's a few stats. In session 1, we had 80% of our students invited attend their summer tutoring with an average of 84% attendance for the 2 weeks. In session 2, we had 86% of the 54 students invited, and they had an average of 85% attendance for the 2 weeks. And then this session 3, like I said, starts today with 40 students that are signed up. Our attendance rates were a little bit lower on the Fridays, which we made virtual versus face-to-face. So that was a choice we had made to try that out and see what happened, but we definitely were able to see a difference in attendance using the virtual option on Fridays. The positives from our tutoring program were that most kids are receiving one-on-one tutoring, which of course is highly effective and engaging for our students. Every single teacher has emphasized how great it is to work with the students in such small groups, and the students love the attention. We want to acknowledge the transportation department, especially in being able to transport all our students in for tutoring. I mean, they were running buses in and out. And without their time, support, and work, we would not have been able to reach all our students and get them in the buildings. Finally, the teachers and the coordinators, we had Ben Kreitz and Robin Lentz, have gone above and beyond to make this process positive. Everyone has been so flexible and just able to go with the flow on a daily basis to support connecting with our students and their families. I want to pass this on to Mr. Huber, who's now going to talk about middle school and high school summer learning.
Yeah, the middle school program, which is held here at Portage Northern High School on the 3rd floor, has the small group tutoring sessions. What they've done there is they've mixed that up with some project-based learning events for the students that are there. The teachers creatively included a lot of number sense, pre-algebra concepts, vocabulary, both academic and interpersonal, all inside that relational environment. And that's helped us build some relationships and what we would consider bring back on board students who may have been learning virtually at that time. I believe all but just a handful of the students are actually attending in person. We made some accommodations for some students who are remote or are our students but live out of county, and a few students who needed to do the instruction virtually. The program has had middle school staff and teachers to help support the coordination of that. I've had Dan Starr and Heidi Hively working on the coordination side, and all the rest of the instructors are middle school instructors, so the students are getting to see the teachers that they will see when they return, and we've had teachers from all 3 of our middle schools participate as tutors in this. They've been doing things like practical cooking lessons. They've been constructing some robots, doing some academic-based games and other relationship-building activities. The focus for the middle school has been on connecting students with staff in a positive environment. And then, again, I just appreciate how we've been able to make this middle school program work. While the attendance has been a bit lower with 78 students out of the 300 we invited attending, we know that that capture of the students for those 78 has been very positive. We're able to make some adjustments with it. Our high school program, our goal there really was to recapture missing credits for students to keep them on track towards graduation, especially graduating on time and with their peer group. We also wanted to make sure we could reteach and focus on those essential standards that the students have to know before they move to the next level. It's great if we finish a course and say, okay, you've completed enough to finish, a geometry, now you can move on to Algebra 2. But our goal there was make sure they had the have-to-know concepts embedded, and they could move on to that. Each course was really broken down into these essential standards by marking period, and the content area teachers that are with them are certified in the area for their instruction, especially in our core content. We've had now towards the end of the season start to move a few around for some of the wrap-up and closing of these credits. But those teachers are focused on those standards to help guide the students through the work. They can do the direct instruction on top of being able to work in that digital platform. We did use 2 programs this summer. The first was the smaller My City program through KRESA's Youth Opportunities Unlimited, which allowed a select group of students to do some work experience and career pathway, and that seems to be going well. I did want to check in on that one more time this week with talking with their staff. The counselors really selected those students to participate, and so I do want to acknowledge the work of the KRESA team and Paige Daniels, the director there, and Molly Fitzhenry, one of their program staff, in helping make that happen for us, and for welcoming the Portage students to be a part of that. Our larger summer program, which are the numbers you're seeing on the screen, is done credit recovery and completion on those marking period basis. We were using a digital content platform, Play-Doh, coupled with those in-person content area teachers and paraprofessional staff to help meet the needs. The classes were scheduled to have up to 15 students in attendance, but But the largest I observed when walking through was around 6-1. And in most cases, we were able to get a lot of direct instruction time to do that tutoring. The large study hall space, which was our media center there, could hold up to 30, and I saw a lot of that in there, maybe 25 students, but we had around 5 staff at any one time covering them, including some wonderful paraprofessionals, Chris Cook from Central High and Julia Warner from Central as well, just kind of supporting those students in that space. And so that allowed us to do a lot of that. For students that maybe only needed a portion of a marking period to get done, our staff were able to select the benchmarks and standards they needed to target that learning for them. So the second floor at Northern High has been what we've used, and we appreciate Mr. Edwards and Mr. Herron and our custodial crew for being able to kind of get us into that space and help allow us to be in there for the duration of summer. Jody Stoner in transportation has been wonderful. The flexibility there for our bus drivers to be able to pick up and drop off students that might only need to come for 5 days and then they're finished with their work has definitely been a benefit. And Nate Ledlow, who's the director of our high school program, mentioned that multiple times, said, hey, we have to call transportation regularly and we appreciate the work that they're doing over there. So also, Susan Livingston and the Chartwells Food Service folks have made sure that lunch and food has been provided at all of our summer learning sites for families, and they've been instrumental in making sure they're ready with the nutrition they need to stay focused and at least just engaged in that. And when we get down to the numbers, thus far we have 216 semester course credits being issued and completed for students at our 3 high schools. And that's just the count as of last week, I think on Thursday, or a little bit of this morning. We're expecting that number to go up. That is an incredible amount of work being accomplished in the summertime. We never see a number like that traditionally in summer. Granted, it's been a remarkable 15 months with us, but this is what we wanted to accomplish. So we really feel like we got something there. A little quote from Nate Ledlow. He thinks we should have close to 250 semester courses completed by the end of summer, and overall the program has been a success. He comments, for many students it'll be the reason they can continue their education at Portage Central or Portage Northern or at Community High instead of having to find an alternate path to graduation. Students have been well behaved, focused on getting to school each day and completing their work. The staff has done an amazing job recognizing that most of the students participating in the program were there as a result of a really challenging situation during a really challenging school year. They've responded with kindness and compassion and have worked hard getting the students the help that they need. The program's been an example of what we can accomplish when multiple groups of people come together for a common goal. And so we're thankful for our summer teaching staff and our summer learning coordinators, and this includes teachers and parapros from all 3 high schools, special educators, and other support staff making this happen. That's a pretty deep dig for our summer learning program to let you guys hear and to let our community who's watching online and in the auditorium hear how we've approached summer learning this year. Dr. Pasco?
Great. We'll talk a little bit about next steps. So our summer work is essential to us, and so is our readiness for the upcoming school year. So we understand we have a diverse set of learning needs relative to our curriculum as students return. We'll continue to focus on our systems, both instructionally and support for our staff and our students to have a successful 21-22 school year. So I want to share some details of how we're getting ready for 21-22. So as I mentioned before, our fall screeners will be utilized, continue specific supports for students, including Acadians for reading, NWA math and reading, and our SEL, social emotional learning screeners that we'll have in place for the fall. We're launching a new curriculum component for our 9th grade reading intervention course at our 3 high schools. It's called Language Live. We're continuing our support of our middle school literacy programs, including teacher and staff development and explicit curriculum instruction. Our elementary ELA and math teams that continue to unpack the application of essential standards and skills, trying to address the learning loss by focusing on teaching the priority standards in our core subject areas per grade level. So Dr. Sheehan, Jessica Winstanley, Courtney Hoff, and alongside some lead elementary teachers have been working over a year on this, but have been also coming in this summer and are doing some great work and are going to do some of this work within our Teach Camp as well. So thanks to them for all their time. Elementary reading and engagement specialists alongside our district coaches, they'll engage in some coaching rounds with teachers to support student achievement. That's going to be a new element this year. Our middle school social studies team continued integration of our curriculum equity components in our middle school lessons. Our virtual teachers, they'll build on what we've learned. They have a foundation over the last 16 months that they'll build on to improve our virtual program as we move forward. Continue to implement MTSS. We'll adjust our instructional strategies based off of the student achievement data that we collect and that we see over the past year and as we move into August and September. Most importantly, a strong focus on social emotional learning, supporting the whole PPS community by improving our culture and climate, and including mental health supports as we receive kids back and we welcome them back. So 21-22 school year, it'll be another challenging year. We have the opportunity, though, to work together and overcome those challenges as they present themselves. We know the city of Portage and our schools are an incredible community as one, excellent teachers, we have amazing students, and a vibrant, diverse city. You know, as we celebrate, like Superintendent Beelang said, our 100th year of Portage Public Schools, we're optimistic that we can collectively provide the necessary supports to all our students, our staff, our families, and our teachers. We'll continue to honor our mission and vision and be a place where the future learns. So that's all we have for you tonight. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
I just want to make one additional comment to what we presented so far. It's one of the differences between last year and this year is last year there was legislation that required boards to approve a return to learn plan. That legislation expired. There is no current legislation that that makes this decision part of a board decision as to what we do, what we incorporate. So we return back to, you know, our former times and under, you know, the operations of the district will align with the policies that we have as a district. So unless legislation changes, you'll not be required to approve any part of this plan. So, sorry for that, but questions?
Well, we sure appreciate the update, and we also appreciate all the work that's underway this summer. Sounds like a great experience for our kids. That's great. And good news on the enrollment, too. Is that in any particular grade, or is it across the board?
It's scattered, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, keep in mind, obviously, moving into last year, we lost a few hundred students. So when we say gain, we're chipping away at that loss of a few hundred students in 2021 school year. So we're trending back in the right direction. So that's positive, and it's bringing some hope in terms of the enrollment numbers.
I think some of those were kindergarten students. We're starting to get them coming in the door, so realizing that enrollment and getting your young ones in. So we're starting to see a pocket of them coming in too.
That's
so that's
good.
great.
Yeah, good. Any other comments or questions for our presenters?
I just had a quick question. Just that one concern, because I know that in the presentations in the past, you know, kids can't make up, you know, they can't go virtual when they're sick. And currently the recommendation from the CDC, whether you're vaccinated or not, is a 10-day quarantine. And I'm just concerned about potential excessive absences in these kids. And I just want us to make sure we find a way that those kids are still learning. Because if they are required to, I want them to stay home, and we want to encourage them to stay home, but it's almost a punishment that they can't learn. You know, and that's really important for a lot of kids. I know my kids would be mortified. You know, this past year they had that option. Obviously, we're moving forward, I think, in the right direction. You know, we really want to, but I'm just concerned what's going to happen with those kids when they're out for 10 days.
Yeah. Well, we know high flex was a challenge, you know, and we'll be the first ones to say that. Our teachers did an amazing job making it work because it was what we had to do. But we also picked up a lot of tools and a lot of approaches to teaching and learning, and, you know, utilizing simple things like Google Classroom were ways that kids stayed connected and families stayed connected as they were absent. So even though we may be removing that high flex approach, we still have a lot of strategies that we'll keep with us to help kids connect it when they're not physically in the building. So Rusty, we definitely want to pay close attention to that and make sure we're keeping those things in place so that we don't lose kids as they either quarantine or they're just absent in general. I think we're in a better spot actually for that situation than we were pre-COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would just say much appreciation for the efforts this summer. That credit recovery is awesome, just incredible. And then I think the watchword for the next year, just like last year, is flexibility. We're starting the year in a certain situation, and it is almost a sure thing that that will not be how we will end the year, but we'll go through and we will be, I suspect, making adjustments as we go and we learn.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to our comments and communications section. First, we have comments by citizens, and we have 11 citizens who would like to speak tonight. I'll start by reading our guidelines for public comment at board meetings. First of all, the board welcomes public comment at our public meetings. When addressing the board, please conform to these guidelines as follows. Sign the speaker registration form at the beginning of the meeting. State your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Provide a written copy of your comments and supporting documentation to the board secretary if available. Present your comments in a respectful and professional manner. Refrain from mentioning any student by name and contact the superintendent directly regarding personnel matters. Board of Education members are not obligated to respond to issues raised during public comment. Normally, such issues are referred to the superintendent for follow-up. I will advise when speakers reach 3 minutes, and we would expect you to summarize your comments and wind them up after that. And we'll start with our first speaker tonight, Mary Ellen Agar. Welcome.
Mary Ellen Agar, 6024 Avon Street. I no longer have any children in the Portage schools, but I care about the students in our community. I taught at St. Monica's School for over 30 years and at Western and Kalamazoo Valley for 12 years. I have seen many changes in the way that we teach our classes. From open classrooms, the new math, the Chicago math, no cursive writing, no books because they're all on our tablets. I tried to adjust with each change that was introduced, and except for the new math, which I did pretty well. However, asking me to teach that white kids are racist and others are not, it's not something I could do. I have read about the CRT, which is the critical race theory, and discussed it with many friends and other teachers. And it is kind of my understanding that Portage Public Schools will not be participating in this damaging program that will destroy our children for several years to come. Teaching the CRT is not my job, or wouldn't have been. It isn't the job of other teachers. My job is to educate the children in, let's say, science or math, English, social studies, and other subjects. If you ask who should teach their children about differences in races, their parents have that responsibility to teach their children, not teachers. I'd never want to hear kids on the playground whisper, "Are you a racist?" I know I'm not, but she said all white people are. Well, geez, well, maybe I am. I hadn't thought about Jimmy being different. I know that he eats different food than I do, but that's just who he is. He's still my friend. This conversation should never take place on any of our playgrounds because of our schools buying into the CRT. And I personally like to thank the Portage School Board for allowing me to suggest that we not take part of this program and not partake in the flavor of the month, which is easy to do for education.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
next speaker is Jennifer Gaylor.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gaylor. First, I want to commend the board on their decision to provide parents with options this fall by having masks in school, optional masks. You are in good company with 306 other people who signed my petition to keep masks optional. So again, thank you. However, there are a few things I want to clear up. I want to know what society puts children in danger to save adults. Are we masking and vaccinating children for the greater good? Are we masking and vaccinating children in order to protect adults and the elderly? Children fare well with COVID and should not be vaccinated or masked against an illness in which does not affect them. We need to prioritize our children again. They've been forgotten in this pandemic, and we continue to put their well-being to the wayside with these nonsensical mask mandates, recommendations, and restrictions by politicians who disobey their own rules. Our district should be operating at a pre-pandemic level at this point, and anything else is really not acceptable. The Journal of American Medical Association just published a new study on June 30th of this year regarding masks and the level of carbon dioxide in kids. The study took 45 kids ages 6 to 17 in a controlled environment to wear face masks. Within 3 minutes, they found kids were inhaling carbon dioxide more than 6 times the acceptable limits for adults. Just a couple months ago, there were thousands of pages of Dr. Fauci's emails released to the media outlets under the Freedom of Information Act. This one stands out to me. From Dr. Fauci, quote, "Masks are really for infected people to prevent them from spreading infection to people who are not infected, rather than protecting uninfected people from acquiring infection. The typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out the virus, which is small enough to pass through material." So I'm not a betting woman, but if I was, I would bet that most people in this room, including people who support mask mandates, have been to a restaurant, a barbecue, socializing with other families, soccer games, football games, hey, even graduations. And I bet that you and your kids were not wearing masks the entire time. If I went on your Facebook or social media pages right now, would I see gatherings of your kids maskless? I probably would. See, I want choices for my family. My choice does not impede upon your rights or freedoms. However, your choice for everyone to wear a mask does just that. It infringes upon my rights and forces my kid to do something he does not want to do. Let's not forget there's a virtual option for those who feel less safe sending their kids to school. So I noticed on social media a mask mandate petition circulating, so I entertained it. And by the way, that petition only received half the support that mine did. Direct quote from the mask mandate petition. "Children may currently be less likely to transmit the virus to one another and less likely to have serious consequences from it, but the chance of complications is certainly a good bit higher than 0. So that's our benchmark? 0. 0 cases. The former FDA chief has said, we're always going to have some level of spread. We're not trying to get this down to 0 cases a day, end quote. Predicting infections will become endemic, meaning they will remain present in the American population. Seasonal flu, for example, is an endemic respiratory illness. Our battle is not against the sniffles, everyone. It's against death and overrun hospitals.
3 minutes, Jennifer.
I'm sorry?
3 minutes, Jennifer.
Can I summarize one last paragraph, please?
Please.
Thank you. I just hope when these politicians issue new recommendations, the board will remain steadfast in their decision not to mask our children. Hey, if our president can let millions of illegal immigrants through our border who are unvaccinated, we can let our kids go maskless. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker tonight is Christopher Sanchez. Welcome.
Before my time starts, may I raise a point of information, please?
Sure.
one of the things that a little bit concerning for a lot of us is that across the school boards, across America, providing your address puts you at risk of being doxxed, being targeted by extremist people. So my point of information, I mean, are you guys requiring it or recommending it, and where in the bylaws does it state that?
Well, I can't quote you the actual bylaw, but it is in our bylaw, and it's been a policy of the district for as long as I can remember.
So under these new circumstances, as you guys said earlier, in this hostile times, political climate, would you guys be okay if I didn't state my address for purposes of safety?
You've written it down, that's fine, sir, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, board, for taking my statement today. I wanted to talk about division in the community. You guys addressed it a little earlier, that we're in a really political climate where everything is divisive. And as you said, Portage Public School is about to hit 100 years. And, you know, it's been relatively stable through World War II, the Cold War, through the Civil Rights Movement. And it's been relatively stable because of people who were able to keep it stable through those hard times. But it seems that over the last couple of years, this board has decided to make what many of us believe extremist positions. Somebody just came up and talked to you about CRT, and I emailed you guys about diversity, inclusion, and equity, which is a subset of CRT, and you said you guys are pushing DIE in your schools, which is a subset of CRT. And I don't understand how you guys either don't see that connection or you just don't know where the genesis came from, but that is a subset of CRT. When you guys push DIE, you are pushing a subset of CRT. And I want to challenge you guys to really look at yourselves and say, am I contributing to the divisiveness in our community and amongst individuals? Because DIE does teach people that because you're white, you have privilege. Because you're white, you might be unconsciously biased or unconsciously racist. That is in the DIE literature. And that is racist in and of itself. Attributing characteristics and attributes to a race based off of the color of their skin is racist. That's racist. You can't do that. That's racist. On the flip side of that, I'm a minority. Assuming that I need help or I can't compete with somebody because of their skin color, that you guys need to help me out, that's pandering. And it makes me feel like I'm valued less than you because I need a head start in a race. DIE is racist, and it contributes to division in our community. The second thing I want to challenge you guys to look at how you may be causing some division in our community is how people approach the vaccine issue. Whether you're vaccinated or not, a lot of people who are vaccinated are looking at individuals who aren't vaccinated and assuming that that person who's unvaccinated is a threat to the safety of the person who is vaccinated. The existence of one human being is a threat to the person who is vaccinated. We can't allow this type of language in our community. We can't allow teachers to pressure people to get vaccinated or tell them that they're hurting the community if they don't get vaccinated or anything like that. That's contributing to the divisiveness of this community. And I just ask you guys on these, these are two examples and there's many examples, but these are two examples. Please go home, look up don't take my word for it, look it up yourself. Is DIE a part of CRT? Are people's language toward unvaccinated people, is that what's driving the division in our community? So I really implore you guys to go do that, and thank you very much for your time, and congratulations PPS on 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Christopher. Our next speaker tonight is Kelly Sackett.
Hello, my name is Kelly Sackett. I live at 7396 Morganshire Court. I have two children that are currently scheduled to attend Portage Central High School in the fall. I am one of the admin of a group, the Informed Parents of Kalamazoo and Portage Schools. On July 10th, I commented on Portage Public Schools Facebook page that Portage Public Schools better have masking and testing procedure in place by the time before this board meeting on July 26th. As many of our group also commented on that Facebook post. On July 12th, Portage Public Schools sent out an email stating that the current plan for the 2021-22 school year is to allow masks to be optional. And that is, if the situation changes, then they will reevaluate that. Was this email sent out to appease us? We are hearing mixed responses from various people at Portage Public Schools. And why was the letter not on official Portage Public Schools letterhead? Michigan is in the top 10 for public schools K through 9 enrollment drop per year, per the Center Square. Michigan experienced a 4.13 drop in enrollment from 2019 to 2021. Total enrollment nationwide is 51.1 million pupils, meaning public schools lost 1.5 million pupils. Michigan Data Schools says that Michigan lost roughly 62,000 pre-K through 12th grade students, as many families last fall switched to private school or homeschooling. Michigan has lost an average of 13,000 students per year for the last decade, but the last year, almost 5 times that number. So in 2020, they lost 5 times what they had lost for the past decade, and that is according to the Detroit Free Press. Michigan is clearly failing our kids. We have many private and public schools around us who have put out official letters, including Mattawan, Vicksburg, Schoolcraft, Kalamazoo Christian, and many more. There are hundreds of them. I have a list of them. I've brought information that I plan to share with you. The bottom line is that we as parents have many choices for our children. When looking at Portage Public Schools' Facebook page, 10 out of the last 13 posts were about the August 3rd bond proposal. Not once was there a post about this school board meeting tonight. Furthermore, when you go to portagepublicschool.org, it states that this meeting is in conference room 1 in the admin building, 8107 Mustang Drive. This tells me all that I need to know about you wanting to hear our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Kelly. Our next speaker is Rob Welke.
Hi, my name is Rob Welke. I want to thank you for allowing us to talk today. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing to our kids and with social distancing and masks and around this virus especially. That, you know, I just looked while I was sitting here because I was curious about mortality rates. And in 2018-2019, there was over 370 children, 0 to 17, that died from the flu. In the last 2 years, according to statistics, there's less than 300 that have died from COVID. We continue to punish our kids and penalize our kids for things that they have no control over. We're not allowing them to be kids. We're putting 3 feet between them and 6 feet between them and plexiglass and putting masks on them so they can't see each other. My daughter is 5 years old. She's going into kindergarten. I would love for her to come to Portage Public Schools. My wife works here. We believe in Portage Public Schools. We moved to Portage because they're good schools. If she has to wear a mask, I guarantee you she's not going to come here. She will either be homeschooled, or we are very fortunate that we can send our kids to private school. I have a son who goes to private school because I would not put him in the school districts last year. Please return to normal. Please, for the kids, not for me, not for anybody else. Allow our kids to have normalcy. Allow them to be kids like you were, like I was. Allow them to be together. Allow them to play. Allow them to hold each other's hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Our next speaker this evening is Kimberly Larson. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly. I am a Portage Public Schools graduate. I'm a second generation Portage Schools Portage Public Schools graduate, and my children are now third generation. I'm rather proud of that. Recently, Michael Pasco sent an email to parents that included the statement, masks will be optional for the 2021-2022 school year. I applaud and approve this decision because I think it's definitely best that parents be allowed to make the decision that's best for their children and families when deciding if their children should wear masks at school. There's a lot of controversy over that, but it's their decision. But now I'm seeing emails that were sent to individual parents saying, we'll still recommend that all unvaccinated individuals wear masks when indoors and in crowded areas. And I really see that as a double standard. I see a few problems here. First of all, students in the classrooms have been conditioned, socialized, they're used to it, whatever term you describe, as when the teacher says, I really need you to do this, they do it. And it's good for the classroom management for them to do that because they're so used to it. It's good. So when a teacher says, you're not vaccinated, I need you to put on a mask, that child is going to put on a mask. And they're going to go home, and when their parents say, you don't need to wear a mask at school, they're going to think, oh, but my teacher says I do. And so we are setting up a situation in Portage schools of teaching students that they should listen to the teacher instead of listening to the parent on a position that Portage Schools has said is the parent's decision. So you have said it's the parent's decision, and then you're telling students, actually, no, it's not, because I need you to wear a mask. The other thing that concerns me a lot is that you're taking a decision that is the parent's decision, and you are telling those students who don't get the vaccine, some of them because they're not able to, some of them because it's a family decision, and saying, you are now less than in everybody else's eyes, and we are going to make you wear a mask. We're going to recommend, aka require, you to wear a mask so that everyone else knows that you are less than, that you are dirty, that you are germy, that you will contaminate me. And I don't see that as appropriate in today's society. What is the first goal of anti-bias education? To recognize that your culture and your family has value, that where you come from and who you are has value. And then we're looking at the school and saying, wait a minute, no, you're not. Your family made the wrong decision, and we're going to point it out to everybody in the school that we disagree with your parents' decision and with your parents' culture. And that's a problem. So what do we do instead? I get that COVID has fear. A lot of people are so afraid of COVID that they put a mask on, a mask that doesn't really do any good, but they put it on because it makes them feel better. So what do we do? Well, I'm also a teacher, so here's my thoughts on this. First of all, if kids have symptoms, encourage them to stay home. We proved last year that Portage, with their high-flex system, can have a child stay home because they have a sniffle or they have a cough that might be concerning, and they can still learn and they can still receive instruction from their teachers.
3 minutes, Kimberly.
We can do it. Let me finish real quick. So, as a teacher, I've heard things, they have a fever, but I still send them to school. My personal favorite, yeah, this child had a fever, but they didn't have green snot, so I gave him Tylenol and sent him to school. I mean, come on, seriously, how many teachers have heard that? We all have. Instead of saying masks, instead of saying vaccines, how about we just make it possible for sick kids to stay home? It's simple.
Thank you for your comments, Kimberly. Our next speaker is Terry Haynes.
My name is Terry Haynes. You have my address on file. Masks must never be mandated. They must never be recommended. Otherwise, you are going to be held legally responsible for what happened. I want to give myself as a personal example. I want to give you 3 dates in my life. December 6, 2005, I had something happen to me that you'll never hear of for the rest of your life. I was walking down to the basement, and my stairs fell in. Hit my head on the wall, had a permanent head injury. It took 2.5 years to take care of the pain, to take care of the seizures that followed. Second date that I want to give you, it was April 24th of last year during the pandemic. And I was told to wear a mask. I came in, ironically, to that particular hospital, not in this city, by the way. It was a city I lived in at that time. But I was told to wear a mask, and I told them I can wear a mask, but I can wear it only just for a little while, because that's why I'm coming in. I'm going to Myers, and within 30 minutes, I'm feeling like I have to faint. I almost faint. I can't make it through the cash register. I go out to my car. I take the mask off. I breathe normally for 10 minutes, and then I'm better, and I can at least make it home. So that's the second date that I want to give you. I want to give you another date. It took 2.5 years, by the way, to take care of that problem. The first problem. The second problem, it took 6 weeks. I'm sorry, it took 6 months. And the reason is that I can't get in to see doctors without wearing a mask for over 15 minutes. Now, guess what? I'm apparently not a very, apparently somebody who slips and falls a lot, because in April of this year, I slipped, fell on a doorknob, and have recovered almost all of my injury effects. Look, if you're going to require masks, if you're going to recommend masks, you must be held legally responsible. And somehow, because I can't get a doctor to see me in Michigan, if I don't wear a mask for over 15 minutes, somehow you're going to have to transport these students that are having trouble over the state line to some other state line. You're going to have to put them on a plane. You're going to have to do something to take care of this problem. This was a terrible policy you came up with. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Terry. Our next speaker is Jennifer Odza.
Hello, thank you for hearing me tonight. My name is Jennifer Odza. I'm a resident of Portage. I have 2 kids that go to school here at Northern. I guess I'm a minority opinion tonight. I'm pretty disappointed in the mask policy because I think there should be a mandatory mask policy. As you probably are aware, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that all unvaccinated children ages 2 and above wear masks when at school, including when participating in outdoor sports where there is close contact and for indoor sports. Currently, all children under 12 are not vaccinated against COVID-19. Absent vaccination, one of the best tools to prevent the spread of COVID-19 is masking. By making masks optional, PPS has effectively given up its duty to protect the health and well-being of students, especially those who cannot be vaccinated. This is more true now than ever because of the Delta variant, which by some accounts is 1,000 times more contagious than the COVID-19 that we were dealing with a year ago. Additionally, there have been some breakthroughs of even people who are fully vaccinated can get COVID. Some have been hospitalized, and in our state, I'm aware that several people have died, even though they were fully vaccinated. Leaving the mask decision to each individual means that less than 100% will be masked, and that means that the overall protection for the students is much less than if everyone is wearing masks. Approximately 45% of Kalamazoo residents over age 16 have been fully vaccinated. Now, the vaccine for 12 to 16-year-olds hasn't been available for as long, so we can say with some surety that less than 45% of those kids have been vaccinated. And of course, anyone 12 and under has not had that as a possibility. So I would ask each of you, when you've gone out in our community, when you've gone to the grocery store, when you've gone to the restaurants, have you seen 45%, 50% people wearing their masks? And the answer is no. Thank you, I was quiet while you were speaking. I believe that it is the responsibility of this body to protect the health of the students, teachers, and staff. Failing to mandate masks, in effect, is giving up on this responsibility. By making masks optional, you have effectively said that children, some of them very young, are responsible for deciding whether or not to wear a mask. I think we all know that the decision of when and where to wear a mask can be complicated and can be impacted by the norms of the place. Do we really want young kids making that analysis? Kids who are figuring out such basic things as how to get in line, how to take turns, and how to add. Making masks optional means that there is no rule or tool for teachers to use when they think a mask is appropriate. This sounds like a difficult position to be in. Not only is the teacher in the position of not being supported by some thoughtful guidance from PPS, but they are potentially in harm's way if a COVID-positive student is maskless. Many might say, especially for students, that they can avoid a maskless environment by taking classes virtually. However, that is not much of a choice for many of us. My own children, they have one class that they could do virtually. Everything else is only offered in person. And for teachers, I think there's similar things. Most teachers have to be here.
3 minutes, Jennifer.
Thank you. I suggest the better stance is that masks are mandatory, and if a family does not want to use a mask, that they would have the option to have virtual school. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is John Rocha.
Thank you very much. My name is John Rocha. I'm a resident of Portage, Michigan. And actually, 21 years ago, I'm actually a student of Portage Northern High School. And a little known story about me as an American Mexican is on this stage, I actually was part of, and nobody knows this, I was actually part of a show called Up the Down Staircase. It was a performance we did, and I was typecasted as the Mexican student who didn't speak any English at all. It's interesting, right? But you know why I was up there doing it? It wasn't because I was Mexican. It was because I dang well was good at what I was doing. I was a dang good actor on this stage, and I should have done it way beyond this, but I wasn't. This is my point. Here at Portage Northern High School, I never thought I wasn't included with the people. The majority of students here are white. Majority of them are. Very few are minorities. I never clicked with one individual group. I never thought of myself as an outcast. People accepted me as a human being, and that was important. Over the last 20 years, we've seen that divide grow. And now we're having these conversations about how we can try to pander to people like myself, other minorities, Mexicans like myself. Oh, you're not good enough. We're gonna make sure you get that lead in the role, or we're gonna make sure that you're better here, so on and so forth. And again, I implore you to look at these systems that are going on in the school board. This is why I've asked for the curriculum, the individual curriculum, because we need to know what's going on. It's one thing to learn about someone teaching World War II. It's another thing to learn exactly what we're teaching. It's one thing to learn that in this week we're teaching about the American Revolution. It's another thing completely to know what is being taught about the American Revolution. CRT, 1619 Project, all of this stuff is hocus pocus. It's been driven by divisive politics, and we can't play fool to it anymore. When did we give up the content of one's character for the content of one's skin? When did we quit that? Because that's what I was taught. That's what my kids are taught, and I never want them to be treated differently because of the color of their skin, the content of their character, and for them to work hard for what they want. And finally, I'll let you know this. The parents behind me are not a flash in the pan. They're going to be here, and we're going to grow in numbers because we want to hold the board accountable for the actions that they take, because these are our children's lives. It's not about divisiveness, it's about coming together. And if you guys decide you want to take a different path, that's fine, because we'll be here and we'll be louder next time. We understand the process. We understand 3 people are coming up for re-election. We also understand the recall procedures. So please understand that though we appreciate your guys' presence here, we're not going away. This is just the beginning. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker this evening is Mary Beth Henry.
This letter is a collaboration between Portage students, parents, alumni, residents, and community leaders. We are thankful for the positive feedback we have received from PPS staff opposing SB 460. We are asking that the district not only verbally oppose this bill, but empower educators and administrators to contact our legislators regarding not supporting SB 460. As we continue to restructure our centennial values, this is an area where we can take a stance in continuing to fight for equity in our educational system. After attending or viewing the June 14th board meeting, we have become aware of issues our middle school students have been facing. We are thankful for the middle school teachers who spoke up and for the many others who added their names to that necessary statement. We ask that you reference that meeting recording at the 33-minute mark if you're not aware of those concerns addressed. The concerns and requests addressed not only discuss the inequities faced this past year, but the barriers these educators have been facing for many years. As superintendent, board trustees, and overseeing principals and assistant principals, this is unacceptable. For educators, the teaching conditions they are requesting is at minimum an expectation in meeting their daily teaching needs. For students who have struggled through these conditions, we have failed our vision of being an exceptional, continuously improving learning culture with high expectations committed to all. We only hope that another school year does not pass where our students' basic daily needs are not met. As stakeholders, these unfulfilled securities are broken promises that have been made to this community. We look forward to hearing the action plan for addressing these concerns, not only for our middle schoolers, but ensuring these matters are taken care of across all PPS sectors. We are thankful for our educators' commitment to providing quality education, no matter the circumstances, and will continue to stand with them until safety measures, resources, and necessary working conditions are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Our next speaker is Juliet Altman.
Hello, my name is Juliet. My address is already noted in the whatever sign-up sheet. I'm actually a new resident to Portage. I moved here from Kalamazoo because I have 2 special needs kids who were failed by KPS, and I have another student that is currently attending Woods Edge. And throughout the whole, once we resumed school after the shutdown, has been maskless this whole time due to his special needs. But he is transitioning into Portage, and as a parent of 2 special needs kids, I am concerned with the wording and the lack of clarity from the board. We understand that the parents that are not in support of the masks have received certain communication from the staff, and the parents that are in support of masks have received different communication. I don't appreciate the pandering, and I'm sure that they don't appreciate that either. We're just asking for clarity, and also none of the statement that was sent out did not address all the other concerns that the Michigan Return to School Plan addressed, such as the testing twice weekly for unvaccinated children. It also did not mention what the plan will be for if there are a close contact in case that somebody does test positive and if you're going to resume quarantining. My concern with the recommendation is that you will not require, but you will recommend. And as a parent of 2 special needs kids, they don't have a voice. Literally, they do not communicate verbally. Their form of communication is through icons, and my son is learning how to communicate with his iPad. I am his advocate. Unfortunately, I am placing my full faith, my full trust in Portage schools to educate him, to value him as the human that he is. His worth does not come by communicating verbally. His worth is there because he is an amazing human. I have to advocate for him, and I cannot be in the room, obviously, at school. I mean, literally, no child wants their parent in the room with them. Let's be honest. He can't tell me that, but I'm pretty sure that his attitude would change remarkably. Like, say, Mom, seriously, you're a lot. So I won't do that, obviously, and I respect the teachers. Seriously, you guys have done a tremendous job this past year. And I'm sorry that you don't have a contract. I'm sorry that your voice isn't being heard. I'm not against you, and I'm not against the parents either. Ultimately, all we want is clarity, and all we want is parent choice. I truly believe that you are doing, as parents, everybody in this room is trying to do the best that they can for their kids. I own a small business as a medical interpreter, and I have done so for 14 years. Actually, sorry, my math is wrong. It's going to be 16 years. When nobody else wanted to go into COVID-positive rooms because of the fear of the unknown, I went in. I took the risk because I am young and healthy. My spouse is young and healthy. Our kids are young and healthy. We didn't know what we were facing back then in March. When the shutdown happened, we didn't know what the risk was. But having been a medical interpreter for years, it's not the first pandemic that I've worked through. So I figured if this is my time, this is my time. I will die, but at least I served my Spanish-speaking community. I did not die, but I did go into those COVID rooms. I'm not dismissing the reality of COVID, and I'm not dismissing the pain, suffering, and death because I have been in those rooms. But also, I have been in rooms where suicide has occurred. Teenage suicide, whether failed attempts or unfortunately successful suicide. And having to talk to the parents, it sucks. And I'm sorry that the kids in this era are having to deal with this. As a suicide attempt survivor, I am sorry that kids feel that this is the only way that their voice is being heard. I know that you're in a difficult position. I recognize that anything you say will be controversial. I don't wish to be in your seat. But I thank you for taking your time to be here. I pray that you do have peace and clarity. And I just ask that you provide that clarity to us as parents, as staff, as citizens of this community who are entrusting our children and generations to be educated by Portage. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. We have one more speaker who missed the opportunity to sign up to speak. Does that person wish to speak? Who is the person that missed the sign-up sheet? Please, go ahead. You can give us your name and address, please.
My name is Kendall Gladding, 6328 Cherrywood Street.
I am the parent of 2 elementary students at Amberley, and I'm obviously going to discuss the unpopular opinion that masking should be required in the schools. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to convince anybody to change their minds, I'm sure. It's obviously a very controversial issue. I just would like to ask a few questions. I know you can't answer them today, but some things that I would like people to be thinking about and would like some answers to at some point. Without requiring masks for kids, obviously my kids can wear masks if we ask them to, but will there be enforcement? I know that those who don't want masks are concerned about possibly or unvaccinated children being ridiculed, ostracized in some way because we're creating groups in a situation where all kids should be treated equally. We're creating artificial groups of masked and unmasked. I have the same concern for my kids, that if I send them to school in a mask, are they going to get teased? Is there going to be peer pressure, which we know there will be? Peer pressure to take off the mask. If they do, is the teacher going to tell them to put it back on? How is that going to be handled? It just creates so much work and controversy with regards to how to maintain that environment safely. Will there be mask breaks? Will there be a focus on doing more of the schooling outdoors like there was last year? Amberley is a really, really old building. There's no air conditioning. It's like 100 degrees in there in the fall and the summer. Air purifiers don't do a whole lot in a room where there's no circulation of the air. So is there going to be any effort to do anything additional to create an environment that's safe for the kids, to get the kids that do choose to wear a mask to have their mask breaks like they did last year? Are there going to be any considerations given to physical education classes or music classes? Last year, they were brought to the rooms, one person coming into each room, is my understanding. Will the kids all be going to the same room? Will they be playing the recorders? Will they be singing full volume, masked and unmasked? Is there consideration for how that might be handled and how that might increase the spread of COVID? And you talked several times about layered mitigation strategies, and I struggled to understand what those were from the presentation that was given, because you said you're going to recommend masks, which isn't a mitigation strategy. You said you're going to try to maintain 3 feet of distance, which that's not a mitigation strategy if you're not actually going to succeed at that, which we know is not going to happen given the size of the classrooms. The cleaning was said to be kind of the per usual was good enough because it's not really a surface-borne illness, so once a day is enough. Maybe we'll a little bit more high-frequency surfaces, clean those a little bit more. And stay home if you're sick. So I don't really understand what PPS or the schools or the board or whoever's making the decisions is doing. There's not a single mitigation strategy listed there that you all or that the schools are responsible for. The last questions would be, what's the threshold for requiring masks? What would cause you to say, okay, we think that we should go back to this? Is it going to require a mandate? Is it going to be if there's 5% positivity, 20% positivity? If there's an outbreak in a school, will the school close down? There's so many questions that you guys, there was no answers to today. It was a very brief, superficial discussion of what the plan is and not a lot of answers. So I'm hoping that we get some more of those before we have to decide what to do in a month. I had planned on sending the kids back face-to-face. I was looking forward to it. They're looking forward to it. But I'm really discouraged by the limited information and the limited sense of safety I have, given what I've heard. Thank you for fitting me in.
Thank you, Kenny. That ends our public comment for this evening. Appreciate
Sir,
it.
I didn't get a chance. I wasn't going to comment, and then as I was sitting here, I decided I'd really like to make a comment, so could you?
This is our last comment then, sir, please.
All right, thank you, sir.
Your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Adam Heikela, and I'm not going to give my address. As part of what I discussed as I walked in the door is that boards across the nation continue to try to say that that's your requirement for participation from the public. And that is unconstitutional and unjust. And I'm not shocked in any way, because I have spoken to many boards across the state of Michigan. School boards, county boards, township boards, village boards. Because right now, we are no longer in control of our government like we are to be in America. And it says it right here. I want to read you guys something right from your own little booklet here. This is what made me want to comment, okay? You said that the Board of Education meets in public for the purpose of conducting the business or the district's business. It is not to be considered as a public community meeting. This is not supposed to be a public meeting, it says. But time is provided on the agenda for public participation. I've seen this problem all over the place. And it stems from this on this other section of your own piece of paper here. It says your policy and governance. It says that you're doing this, the Portage Board of Education has adopted a model of administrative organization called policy governance. This model requires that the board operate as a single unit by enacting policies to guide the staff in operations and decision making, which leads me to believe that you as a board have not had a dissenting vote in probably many years. If we go back on the history, every single vote is unanimous because you have a policy that you all make your decisions, not here for the public to know what you are doing, but behind the scenes, because I've been on boards like yours as well, and I know how those decisions are made. Because this is the corruption, not in Washington, D.C., that we as Americans need to focus on, but it's right here on our own schools. When you have already admitted, in the beginning, the first things you said and talked about was misinformation. How much misinformation has happened over the last year? Back and forth and changes that have happened. That has happened because all of these statistics that they claim to use have been created out of this pandemic time. They're using statistical data to continue to destroy America. I don't know why exactly that is, but boards like yours continue to allow groups like the CDC, the Department of Health, all of these bureaucratic boards that are unelected, that are ultimately socialist, communist boards that do a control from outside of this community. You now have blown smoke up the rear end of how many of your residents and parents that are upset about masking and other things. But obviously, what you told them was false. Everything that was read as far as what's going to happen, you're going to force masking. You're going to force the masking because it is the divisive strategy that's going on in our nation today. The fact that you all can sit there with a straight face, it's mind-blowing. And now I just found out too, I figured with a school district this size, you would meet twice a month because you have so much that you should be doing and working on. But instead, on your schedule, I saw that you have 4 retreats a year that you all attend. I, as a township supervisor, went to the Michigan Township Association conference. I know what happens at those conferences. You get wined and dined. Big old parties, and yeah, we are cool and important. You are not the rulers of the community.
Adam, 3 minutes.
You do not get to say that you cannot speak like this to you in this community meeting. It is against the Constitution, our rights to redress the grievances with you who are elected to govern, with the duty that you all are ignorant of. Thank you.
That ends our public comment for this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out. You've certainly shown a diversity of opinions and given us a number of things to work on. Thank you. And we're going to move on with our agenda now and move to trustee comments. Are there any comments from trustees this evening?
Well, Randy, I'll start. I'll just be very clear. I've never been wined and dined by anything. I've had a few, maybe Jimmy John's type sandwiches in our retreats, which are open to the public. So no, I'm saddened that our public officials of townships do that, but I can promise I've never done that. I just want to be clear.
Thanks, Rusty.
We've never left the buildings.
No.
They're all in the building.
For point of information?
No.
No. No.
Any other comments from trustees? Okay, we're going to move ahead with our consent agenda this evening. We have one item on our consent agenda, and that's the approval of the meeting minutes from the June 28th, 2021 special meeting, the regular business meeting, and closed session. Are there any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. We'll now move to our action items. The first one is a Chromebook purchase on page 30. Is there a motion, please?
Yeah, President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education approve as presented the purchase of 1,400 Chromebooks from Intercomp TSG of Michigan in the amount not to exceed $338,310, the proceeds for which will come from the ESSER COVID grant funds.
Thanks, Rusty. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes, we actually got word from one of our vendors that they have Chromebooks in stock, and as that supply chain has been quite complicated during all things COVID, we've decided to take the available grant funds we have and purchase some more Chromebooks at this time. This part is insurance for us as a district, but it also gives us flexibility to start phasing out some of our ACER Chromebooks that are no longer receiving software updates. In normal classroom operations, having a bit older software on a Chromebook is not a huge problem, except when it comes to state testing. The state of Michigan frequently requires a more updated Chromebook for their testing software to work. And so this is both an insurance and a flexibility item. Again, it's coming from grant funds, so there's no impact on the general fund. This vendor did bid via the state contract, so no RFP was required on the part of Portage. And with that, I'd answer any questions the board has.
Any questions for Dan, or should we take this to a vote? All in favor of approving the Chromebook purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the Chromebooks are on the way. Our next action item is fiber optic testing appliance purchase on page 34. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education authorize the purchase as presented of a fiber optic testing appliance from Gray Bar of Grand Rapids, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $52,783.42, the proceeds for which will be drawn from ESSER grant funds.
Thanks, Bo. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Terry. Dan?
Yeah, so the board is aware that via construction and planned upgrades, we're adding a lot of fiber optics to the district. At this point in time, we do not have a way to test this fiber optic equipment in-house. We always have to contact a vendor for that service. We've wanted an appliance to do this on our own for some time, but given the expense, we've delayed the purchase. We've actually spent time trying to find a cheaper option and or buy some equipment that's used, but we haven't been able to find that yet. We did check around, and this equipment is eligible under ESSER grant funds, so once again, we're able to secure this equipment without having to go into the general fund or the remaining bond funds at this point in time. So with that, any questions that I can answer for all of you?
Any questions for Dan? Okay, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the fiber optic testing appliance purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes to purchase the fiber optic testing appliance. Our next action item is on page 38. It's to approve our SRO agreement with the City of Portage. Is there a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. I move that the Board of Education approve the School Resource Officer Agreement with the City of Portage for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2024 in the annual amount of $111,264.02 as presented.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any discussion or anything you want to say, Mark?
Just that this reaches the $100,000 threshold that the board requires, and it fell off my radar bringing this to the board when we entered into it. It is a 3-year agreement, which is typical of what we've done in past years, and it is for 2 school resource officers, one that's housed primarily at the central campus and the other at the northern campus. And
Very good.
The contract is there for your perusal.
Any questions? Should we take it to action?
Just appreciate the relationship with the city for those officers.
Right. Okay, all those in favor of approving the SRO agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the SRO agreement is approved. Our next action item is to approve administrative contracts. There's a motion on page 46, please.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make the following motion. The Board of Education authorize the superintendent to issue administrative contract extensions not to exceed beyond the June 30, 2023, with additional compensation in the Agar as approved by the board as part of the initial 2021-2022 budget as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Mark?
This is pretty much an annual action item that comes to the board on administrative contracts. The dollar amounts that are shown there are incorporated into the budget. This primarily allows for all of the individuals, the administrators listed, to allow for their step increases. Also, as required by your policies, anyone earning more than $100,000 are highlighted in bold, and that's done for you there as well. Does not include the 4 contracts that have already been approved by the board, but it does essentially extend contracts for 1 more year, so these administrators will all be under a 2-year contract.
Any questions for Mark? Okay, all those in favor of approving the administrative contracts, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. The administrative contracts are approved. And now we have that 5th action item that we needed to add, and that's the audit firm recommendation. And that recommendation itself could form the basis for the motion. Is there a motion, please?
Yes, I guess it falls to me, right?
Sure.
So I'd like to make, do we go right to motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion, the Board of Education extend the contract with our CPA firm, Redmond Robinson, to conduct the district audit for the fiscal years ending in June 30, 21 through June 30, 2023 at the cost of $102,000 over 3 years.
Thank you,
We all
Kurt.
have
Is
the
there a
info in
second?
front of us.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Is Paula going to present anything, or are you going to present anything?
I really don't know if there's anything to present. Paula called me this week and said, hey, we need to get this through because our contract has run up and they're ready to start work, and we didn't have something that we didn't approve it, so we just need to move it forward. As you can see, that the fee actually this year is going to go down a little bit, and it's in the realm of what we paid the last 5 years. It's all about the same number. So it's really a formality, but we have to approve it because it's over $100,000 threshold over 3 years.
Any questions about it? Happy to continue with Raymond Robson. All those in favor of approving the audit firm recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the annual audit firm recommendation is approved. The audit firm recommendation is approved. We'll now move to our discussion items, and the first one is the annual student furniture purchase on page 49.
Ron's coming up to address this one, and the next one as well. And I think these are both, if the board is so inclined to move these to action after you've heard them, that would be a welcome move. So I'll let Ron finish with his first.
It would be much appreciated. I'm bringing to you our annual furniture purchase. It's a recommendation that the board approve the purchase for building furniture from Holland Desk and Chair Company in the amount of $61,035 And that would be coming from our general fund. This is our normal part of our capital outlay process that we do every year, requesting priorities from buildings on furniture needs. You can see that from the bid tab that you have, that Holland Furniture was the largest, which is why we're bringing it to you for the $61,000. That comprises 8 of our buildings for desk and chairs. So I don't know if there's any questions related to that.
Does anybody have a problem taking this to action?
No, I don't. But Ron, are these one of the few items in the world that isn't held up due to the pandemic?
They are delayed, but not held up.
Mr. President, I move that we make the annual student furniture purchase an action item.
Very good, thank you. All those in favor of making the furniture purchase an action item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The furniture purchase is an action item now, and we need a motion, please.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of building furniture from Holland Desk and Chair Company in the amount of $61,035.01, the funds for which will come from the 21-22 general fund budget.
Thank you, Terry.
Seconded.
Thanks, Bull. All those in favor of approving the annual student furniture purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes and the annual furniture purchase is approved. Our next discussion item is Central High School, Northern High School auditorium drapery purchase.
Yes, we are recommending that the board approve the purchase of auditorium draperies for Central and Northern High Schools from iWeiss Holdings in the amount of $34,813. These funds would come from our 2019 bond fund from Proposal 1 and out of our unallocated contingency, which is one of the reasons we want to bring this to the board's attention. We are looking to do some refreshing in the auditoriums. This is one part of that. Next month, we'll bring several other items related to the auditoriums to the board to start to refresh some of the lighting, some of the other things that need attention. We know that we've had our draperies for over 30 years here right now, and they need replacing at this time. So we're looking for the board to approve that.
Any questions for Ron? Can we have a motion, please, to bring this item to action?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to move this item to an action item.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving the auditorium drapery purchase to an action item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. This is now an action item, and the recommendation on page 53 could be the basis for a motion to approve.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education approve the purchase of auditorium draperies for Central High School and Northern High School from iWeiss Holding in the amount of $34,813. This fund will come from the 2019 bond fund proposal number 1, unallocated contingency.
Thank you, Kurt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the auditorium drapery purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The auditorium drapery purchase is approved. And we'll go to our last discussion item
President,
tonight.
may I interrupt just real
Yes.
quick? I had
Yeah.
just a comment, and I'm sorry, it just struck me as we were doing this, but I apologize. We approved the furniture, but I was just wondering, there's some furniture for Central, Middle, and Community High, and I was wondering if we could take some of that out of the bond funds to save the general funds, because those are 2 buildings that are, so just something, I don't know if we could, I just said, when you, I'm sorry, Ron, when you said the draperies were coming from the bond funds, my brain went right there for those furniture purchases. I don't know if it's a big deal or not.
We can check into that to see if that could be applied to
So if
that.
it could be applied, I would be,
Rusty, the acoustics in here, I could not hear what you said.
oh, I'm sorry. So some of the furniture being purchased are for buildings that are included in the bond funds, but all the money's coming from the general fund, so I'm asking if we can, if there's a chance we can pull that, I would definitely be in favor of doing that. So, I don't know, it just caught me when we talked about the drapes fund, sorry.
That's okay. It is possible.
Okay,
I mean, we could look at doing that,
okay.
if that's something that the board,
I always like to preserve as much general fund as possible, so.
there is another, let me just say, on the future enhancement list is another batch of furniture that will be requested for the high schools that's on our list in the future. So that will be requested out of the bond funds as well. So we could add this to that.
Just a thought, so I don't want to complicate it, just, I'm fine.
I guess the
I'm fine
important
either
thing
way.
is to get this ordered.
Yeah.
I guess if we make changes, we can inform you, and
Just
if it's
inform us,
allowable.
Yeah,
And
I want us to move forward to purchase, but just if you could move that. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Rusty. Okay, our last discussion is naming a facility, Operations Policy 7250.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because all of a sudden there's like a flurry of naming, and it came about because we're trying to put some signage on a couple of buildings, namely the stable and the doghouse, I'm sorry. The stable and doghouse, those buildings have been referred to that for quite some period of time now. And now that the stable is more visible from the road, naming that or at least putting some signage on there would be appropriate. So those are two facilities that are being asked of the board to name. The other is also that commons area that's been created between Central High School and Central Middle School has kind of casually been referred to as Centennial Plaza, or Centennial Park, sorry. And so that's another naming request that's coming from the administrators at that campus. Also, we have two other things that, one, you're receiving a request from several coaches and administrators to name a portion of the cross-country course that's at West Middle School after Nick Hosler, who was a coach that was involved in the program. They want to name a hill there and dedicate a sign at the base of the hill or at the top of the hill explaining why that has been named that way. Hopefully the runners, I guess, if they're running, they're probably not going to have a chance to read that if they're fast enough, but at least it commemorates an individual who has contributed to track and field and cross country in the district. And then the other, it's not a request that's here yet, is the naming of the media center, the library at Mooresbridge Elementary School after Lori Kirschman, who served as principal there and is now deceased. So the board has reserved all naming requests for itself. There's not really a specific process in place for bringing recommendations to the board or how that comes to the board. I think that was done intentionally so that there wasn't a specific gatekeeper that people could come to the board and make a recommendation in the naming of a facility or a portion of facility. So this is not as clear as naming a new building after the street it's located on. It's any naming of a facility or portion of a facility. So I bring these to you for your consideration. You have the opportunity to move some of these to action or to act on them, or to take a look at, do we require an additional process to solidify the naming of any of these. So I'll leave it at that.
So I just real quick want to just give a brief history of Nick Hosler, because Nick was a coach at Portage Central, but he was loved by kids at Northern and Central. He's out there cheering on kids from Northern as much as he was from Central. He's heavily involved in the middle school cross-country programs. He runs the summer camps without pay, and really he's dedicated his life to young kids. His middle school, he was a middle school track coach, and he's the assistant cross-country coach. But, you know, watching those kids follow Nick around that field, that track field, he's like the Pied Piper. I mean, just kids gravitate toward him. And he just encouraged, it didn't matter your skill. He just encouraged kids and just, you know, I know the people from Northern and the people from Central understand what Nick did for this community, for the running community. And this is like, really, it's just a little hill, and like, you know, people aren't going to see it running up it, but the kids practicing, I imagine that's where a good place for kids can meet when they stretch out and, you know, honor Nick and be reminded what a wonderful, I mean, Nick was getting treatments and still coached Central Middle School right up to the very end of the season. He was at the Central, the regional meet, helping out, and he passed away just a couple weeks later. So everything he did, he was just dedicated, and he did say that and he was deathly ill. This past year of middle school track was probably the funnest time he's had in his entire life. He was just a wonderful person, and I know it's just a small portion, and this kind of leads to the Kirschman thing. It's almost not like you're naming a facility, but it's just such a small part that people can be, you know, it's really nice that we can honor some of these really good people with just a little thing. So.
Thanks, Rusty.
I see nothing controversial about these names.
No.
I did good, and I didn't even tear up.
I'm assuming the
Well done.
doghouse and the stable are no-brainers as far as that goes, because they've been called that since they were built 15, 20 years ago.
Close.
Maybe-
19, I think.
When, Terry?
19 years.
19, it was 2002 when they
Okay,
opened.
so 19 years ago. So,
I recall at the time, there was a lobby to name the building after a person. That was kind of shut down at that time.
sure.
But, yeah, I agree with you, that it's a no-brainer.
Those are a no-brainer, you know, and I'm not opposed to the other ones, but I'm just saying, those two have been called that for as long as
Yeah,
they've
almost
been
20
around.
years.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that there's no record of any formal action taken by the board. I don't believe that policy existed at the time.
I mean, do people need another month to get comfortable with this, or are folks comfortable just elevating to an action item and going?
Well, I'm assuming Ron wants to get signs, at least for the
Yeah,
the doghouse and the stable, right? He's in the middle of getting signs made, I'm assuming. Ron, is that correct? Is he still here?
He just left.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we would like to get that done while the projects are still open. I mean, we do have it on our directional signage, but we just don't have anything. I think the plan is to put it on the building itself, on each respective building.
Right, but, I mean, that's more pressing than the other two, I'm assuming, as far as timing goes, or is that not correct?
It would be nice to be able to move those two forward, and I think also the naming of Hosler Hill. I think those are the three. I know the coaches would like to have something in place for near the start of the season. So I know those are at least the three that have a little more urgency than the others.
You move it.
Do we want to move them all to an action item as a singular thing? We have three of them, right?
The stable, the doghouse, and Hostler Hill, that's what we want to do?
The park, the two, the stable, the hill, and the hostler.
Can I ask a question about the park? So how is it different than what's the setting here?
I mean, I don't know if it's any different. It's more of a confined space that, you know, that commons area between the two schools is not as clearly defined here. I mean, that was pretty much designed to be a functional space with, for students and staff. mostly for students, but for also for performances and other events, has more, it's more of a defined area than
As
what.
opposed to like, we have tennis courts that kind of block the pathway from here to there. So if that were open, it could possibly be the same sort of thing.
There was never any kind of a formal process. I think that came about rather casually, to name it that.
We could have a Centennial Lake right now.
Yeah.
We could have that.
There's a big pond out there right now.
North Pond.
I'm sorry, I digressed. I
Just a
apologize.
question. I wasn't debating the issue. I was just curious because I haven't seen the area in its finished form, and
Yeah,
so I just didn't know.
You know, I guess from my perspective, the stable, the doghouse, and Hosler Hill would, if the board feels comfortable moving those forward, and then maybe if you want to do more discussion on, well, we haven't heard anything formally on the Mooresbridge naming. That's something that they'll be working on this fall. Centennial Park was added to this, but again, that's something that if you want to take some more time thinking about, you're certainly welcome to do that.
So for tonight, Hosler Hill and the stable and the doghouse?
Sure.
We'd be happy with that, taking that to action? Okay, is there a motion to do that, please, to bring that to action?
I'd like to make the motion that we move the naming recommendations to an action item.
Second.
All in favor of bringing these naming of facilities items to action, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion, please, for Hosler Hill, the stable and the doghouse?
I move that we name the doghouse, the stable, and Hosler Hill, and approve that tonight.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes and the naming requests are approved. Glad we could get that done for Hosler Hill. That's good.
Dick was a great guy. I got goosebumps.
Okay, we have a motion to go into closed session to discuss collective bargaining strategy on page 61.
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education move into closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining strategy as allowed under the Open Meetings Act 15.268, Section 8C.
Seconded.
There's a second. Barbas, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ruppers.
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp.
Yes.
Mrs. Navaria.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
The motion passes. We'll be going into closed session and then coming back to take action on the calendar. Thank you.
We're coming back here.
Yes.
thought it was exciting enough to hang around for.
One of their flyers, yes, for us.
Great.
Oh, this was this left by one of the speakers?
Which one?
There's another one too that was given to me and I'll scan and email to everybody.
Oh, it's that woman.
I'm sorry.
It's the woman who spoke.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that came from.
Well, she said something about informed parents of Kalamazoo and Portage schools.
Okay, we're back in open session to take action on the affirmation of the school calendar for August and September. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move that the district shall operate through September 2021 within the framework of the 2021-22 school calendar that reflects the Board of Education's current school calendar proposal.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes and the calendar for August and September is approved. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Nice job, Randy. You.